Jack's RPG Podcast. I'm in Max. Pursuing the RPG hobby with reckless abandon.
Why, hello, and welcome to Season 20, Episode 3 of Happy Jack's RPG Podcast. My name is Stu.
I'm Jim.
I am Mike.
I'm Stork. And here we are. Can you hear me? Am I muted? Am I on the right mic?
I don't know. I can kind of hear you. Tap the mic. No, it's dead. Use the one from the other side. Oh, wait, now try it.
Yeah? Better?
You're good.
Better?
You're good.
All right,
We're
there
good.
we go. Button mashing.
We figured it out.
Yes.
It works for Soul Calibur. It'll work here.
That's right. That's the only thing that works for Soul Calibur.
Indeed.
In this episode...
First of all, if you guys don't recognize these people, we should introduce them first, and then we can talk about this episode, yeah?
Sure, if you want. Yeah.
So
Who are you and what do you do that makes you famous? You've been on before. Both of you have been on before.
Yeah. My name is Jim Sandoval, and I am the current head of RPGs for the Strategicon series of conventions.
Mike James, Miniatures Director and Acting Event Coordinator for Strategicon.
Here we go.
In this episode, we're going to talk to Mike and Jim about Strategicon, about the upcoming convention, which is next weekend.
Yes. For,
Gateway 2017.
Gateway 2017. Very excited.
Can you believe it? It's almost here.
It's almost here.
What number is this now?
This is the 39th year, I think?
Yeah, something like that.
So next
Yeah.
year's like kind of an anniversary
Yeah,
thing.
next year would be a nice thing to do something for the 40th anniversary. We should probably think about that. But the thing is, a lot of these conventions, their start date is lost to history.
Yeah.
right.
It's nebulous because originally all three cons were started by different groups at different times for different reasons. They just eventually ended up under the same banner. I know OrcCon was early 70s. It was originally Orange County Convention, and the HMGS started it.
Oh, that's the Orcon.
Yep.
Oh.
That now, granted, that's what I've heard from multiple sources, but you know,
Judging from the age of those sources, it can probably be fairly reliable.
well, they're war gamers. Of course, they're old.
Yeah.
But the plural of anecdote is not data, so keep that in mind.
Old war gamers never die. They're just waiting to move. I just made that up.
Right.
I'm going to put that on a
They're
t-shirt.
just waiting for the argument. right?
Yeah.
He's just waiting for you.
I'm going to relate a little bit about Gen Con. Clockwork Monk is looking for superheroic conflict.
In all the wrong places.
Zaras from Poland writes in with some questions, and Amar from Vancouver sends us a GM confession. But first, if you'd like to email us, you can email us at happyjacksrpg@gmail.com. That's happyjacksrpg@gmail.com. We have a forum, and you should go check it out, happyjacks.org/forum. We also are on Twitter, happyjacksrpg, all one word, and also on the Instagrams, happyjacksrpg, all one word.
I like our forum. There's many a time when I've had questions and I post and answers
I'm going
come.
to say right now, your forum is one of the most fecund sources of RPG information that I've ever found.
Sir, I'd take umbrage with that. If I knew what fecund was, I think is that like...
No, I mean, it means it's fertile. But, dude, whenever you want to reach out when you're in a tough spot, I don't even bother to ask the question a lot of times. I'll just look it up in the search, and usually there's already a discussion for it. The bench is pretty deep there, and there's a lot of really good advice and a lot of really good things to latch onto, whether you're a GM or a player.
I actually agree. The other day I posted something like a question and I got, I don't know, some very polite, well thought out answers.
And then Flame Wars, too. We also
Occasionally.
we have some of the best.
You guys do have some best
Role players are creative by nature, and therefore, I'm sure those must get very.
I've been
entertaining.
on some other forums. Even the YouTube comments in places get worse than our forum.
Well, but there's worse. I mean, you can have a flame war that's entertaining,
That's true.
or you can have just vile cesspool of scum and villainy.
Right.
But usually I find that the community you guys have built is a pretty fairly positive community, actually almost exclusively positive community, and very supportive of the hobby. And with the internet the way it is nowadays, that's not the easiest thing to find. I recently went back on Bolter and Chainsword since I got back into 40K, and yeah, man, some of those guys can be really vicious.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's why I stopped playing 40K with other 40K players.
Once again, you're just stuck playing with yourself.
So we had some you guys had some news and some stuff you wanted to talk about next week's convention.
Okay, yeah.
So-
Well, I'll just start off right from the beginning. The reason why Mike is now the acting, what was the term?
Event coordinator.
Event coordinator is that our previous event coordinator, who was in a lot of ways sort of very pivotal to the convention, and also our very close friend, passed away 3 or 4 weeks ago, and which leaves a gigantic void, not only with his friends but at the convention. And there are likely to be some changes coming down the pipe as people try to basically fill in certain positions. I know Mike will probably fill that position, and then we would have an opening in minis, which may or may not be taken over by me, and there may be a change in RPGs if that happens. So it's a pretty big loss, and it's going to cause a little bit of turmoil, and it's going to be a weird con for everybody who runs it, because Tim was very close to pretty much everybody that is at the higher end of running that convention. So it's a sad situation, but I wanted to warn everybody ahead of time that starting at OrCon there may be some changes coming up, but I will definitely keep everybody informed on the forums, and expect no changes as of now. Everything is running exactly the way it should be. Our entire focus as a group has been, let's get through the show, let's make sure everything, all our I's are dotted and T's are crossed, and then as we ramp up for OrCon, we'll make whatever decisions we need to make.
Is there anything that we can do as participants to help you with that?
Well, other than if anybody's interested in maybe joining the group and volunteering some of their time, we're completely run off volunteers. Nobody makes a penny here. So, if you're motivated, you're passionate about the hobby, and you're passionate about spreading it and seeing people enjoy it, I highly encourage you to join us there.
It's a tax
in any
write-off, though,
capacity.
right? Maybe.
Maybe
Hotel room?
If you, yeah, actually, we are not actually classified as a nonprofit. We're an LLP, I believe.
Yeah, I forget.
Yeah,
LLC.
an LLC. We tried to incorporate as a nonprofit, and it turned out to be difficult, and there were a lot of things barring us from doing that because they're very selective about who gets that status, understandably. But really, the only valid reason for working this job, like Mike and I do, is because you love the games, you love the people, and you want to see the hobby expand and touch as many people as possible in a positive way. So, if you have that kind of that kind of fire in you, we have a place for you. So,
if I want to help out, is there anything, prerequisites or something that you guys would like, organizational skills, or passion is great, but
there are so many things that we do, and there are so many things that you can volunteer doing. Anything from helping with breakdown and setup to just helping out in an HQ and making yourself available for a few hours to just answer questions and direct people. You really don't need any skills other than being able to speak the language fluently enough to get by.
Yeah, there's so many jobs that need to be done as a general rule.
Yeah.
If you're free Thursday evenings, that's when we move in. If you stay late at Con on Monday, that's when we move out.
Also, every single department has to have a manned HQ that requires 1 or 2 people being there at all times, and there are some departments that are open 24 hours.
Oof.
So,
wow.
We have a lot of great people like Will Hillstrom, who runs our party games, that basically stays up till 4 o'clock in the morning every day throughout the entire weekend.
Crazy.
Because that's where Werewolf
Right.
and all those games get played.
Right.
The Night Watch. We have 4 people who stay in the main ballroom. They're our security at night. What they do is they work from 10 till 6 or 7 in the morning, and they just play games all night. And there's 4 or 5 of them, and they're just in there, and they just play games and make sure nobody takes anything, and that's it.
Right.
And but they get a badge and a hotel room and everything else for literally just playing games and doing this every now and then.
Because we know it's a sucky job.
Right.
You know, I mean, I'm not saying that there are no perks. There are plenty of perks. I mean, you volunteer for us. There's free entry into the convention. You'll get a badge.
At a certain level, you will get a part of a hotel room.
Yeah, we do hotel rooms in quarters and halves and that kind of thing. We will supplement as needed. There are very few people that get the entire full ride done for them, and
I can't think of anybody.
can't really.
Oh, maybe Eric, but that
Yeah.
doesn't count because even his wife does stuff. So
Yeah.
they split a room. Like Jim and his wife, they split a room, but they both
I'm the
qualified.
department head, and she's the senior volunteer at Miniatures. So
Well, as I learned last con, I can't run my department without her. So I had to do actual work and stuff, and I'm like, I don't know where anything is or how this works anymore because she's got it handled on lockdown. So I'm like,
she's a doll, and she doesn't really even play miniatures games. She's just really good at organizing things.
Oh, my
and,
God.
and wants to be helpful. And she runs the painting contest.
Yep.
That we have.
So if you're good at organizing things, apply at Strategicon. We just
well,
need
always, that always
skill.
helps. That's always a good
If
thing.
you like working a spreadsheet, you're in. And that's the way that actually Tim told me when I first started off. Says if you're good at setting up tables, working out a spreadsheet, and organizing things, you're going to be fine in this job. And that's really what it takes. It's just takes a whole lot, knowing a whole lot of different elements, putting them together, and making them run.
We have a Happy Jacks listener that stepped up, Tomes, and came in.
Well, he's
and
doing games on demand.
He's doing games on demand for me.
And now
Yeah.
it's become a whole. I mean, he's
Right.
run with it. It's
Well,
really
not
neat.
only is Tomes one of the most fabulously wonderful human beings I've ever met in my life, he's just a sweetheart. I've never seen him anything other than jovial and
He's a great
kind.
guy.
He's just a great guy. But he's doing a great job in getting that games on demand going. Actually, if anybody's bringing kids, there is a kids-only games on demand on Sunday.
Are you running those too?
No, I'm bringing 2 kids.
Oh,
Yeah. You know?
Well, the nice thing is we have kids events in every department. There's also a set aside. You can go there. One of the cool things is they've just got stuff there. A lot of the kids events run there, and they've also got things on the wall that say if your kids are in this age range, these are like a good starter games for them, or in this range. And of
And
course,
they have their own little independent games library too.
they do. And we have a games library. I mean, that's another spot where you can help out too. Games library is always looking for people just to make sure they can.
But really,
Loan
we're
out
always
stuff.
looking for people that are willing to sit behind a desk and just answer questions and do stuff. You don't have to be a department head. You don't have to be anything crazy, super, that takes hours and hours of prep that we do before the con and after. There are situations where you can just help out for 4 or 8 hours, get a badge, and just support the community and be there for the
yeah.
convention.
You need, like, for example, people manning those tables that check in and check out the games.
Exactly.
Make sure that
Registration,
Right.
and I mean there are so many elements to this to the machine that runs it, and it's all completely fueled by people that will do things just out of the kindness of their heart and the fact that they love the convention and they love what we do for them. So it's sort of a symbiotic relationship. The con exists because they're there, and the con is there because they want to be. And
you bringing up something earlier, I just love the fact that this con has become such a family event.
yeah,
When we started even 8-9 years ago, very few children there, and those that were there were sort of running feral and people glaring askance. But now people are bringing their kids, and kids are playing, and they're polite, and they're enjoying the thing. And it's the con has become a big family event for lots of people.
Absolutely,
It's just
absolutely.
the kids look forward.
you'll
to
even
it.
see. I mean, just Sophie the Blood Queen, who is basically this little girl who played
Circus
Circus
Maximus,
Maximus. Now she helps. Her mom is one of his main volunteers, and
Yep,
she helps
there
out a
you
lot
go.
too. And you really, when you look at it, right, this is the future of the con.
That's right.
If you don't take care of the kids, who's going to come in 10 years?
And we've managed to turn volunteering for the con into a family event. So
That's nice.
But you know what? Basically, we just wanted to let you guys know that that there may be some changes on the way, and we're going to make the best choices we possibly can to make sure that in the back end you never feel any difference. But just wanted to relay the fact that Tim Keenan, who was anybody who has ever had fun at this convention, he is one of the people that caused that fun. He we called him the master of time and space because all the space and all the time slots are basically his to manage. And whenever when we had the Happy Jacks podcast and the Santa Monica Sea flooded from the ceiling, and we just needed to find some place to hold the podcast. We basically turned that hotel upside down, and Tim found a place to have it. And he was that kind of guy. He put out fires, and he made things easier for everybody. So a lot of the times where everything's working so great and seamlessly, it's because of the tireless efforts of Tim, and he will be greatly missed. But that's enough time on our convention. We have other topics to talk about.
Well, I was
don't
just
wanna
going to say,
eat up all of your
so if
stuff.
you're at the con and Jim and Mike look a little stressed, give them some space.
or bring them in.
No, we can bring them
Yeah.
in.
Little manhood.
Buy them a beer.
Actually, I'll take hugs.
And whiskey.
But really, there'll be a little
Whiskey
commemorative
if it
post
was purchased.
at the convention, indeed.
Or third floor patio. Drink away, folks. Drink
Yeah.
away.
Get drunk in your room, walk out. That's why all the staff gets the third floor, because we like going out to the patio drinking.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, 10 o'clock when we all walk upstairs, all the sliding glass doors on the third floor open out into a patio. There's chairs, tables, and likely booze and drunken staffers.
If you ever want to stumble somewhere for free booze, always come to the floor.
Oh,
yeah.
all right. You've heard it here.
Yeah.
That's it. That sounds like an invite to me.
Absolutely. Anybody in this community is invited to come drink with me in the third floor patio. At
21
any
and
time.
over, please.
21 and over, please. Well, or under if we also have non-alcoholic drinks.
Actually,
Yes.
I like to point out one cool thing that we're doing here for the first time at this convention. We're having a group called the Saber Legion come in. It was actually one of Tim's last projects he was working on. And essentially, it's people who were like kendo sword fighters beforehand, and they're all Star Wars enthusiasts, so they have custom-made lightsabers, and they wear lacrosse gear and beat the hell out of each other.
Oh, really?
It's basically a
Yeah.
sword MMA,
Yep.
which is really kind of very interesting to watch, because you have people that have actually studied German longsword, people that have studied fencing, people that have studied kendo, all of these different sword disciplines, and they come in and they do the lightsaber dueling, and it's just fascinating to see somebody doing like a perfect fencing lunge versus someone who basically has a kendo pose and is just doing that, and it's a sword MMA, and it's super fun to watch, and we're very happy to have them come over here, and they're doing a little exhibitionary.
That's cool and brand new, and I figured I'd throw them to love. So
Where are they doing that?
Once again, that's going to be in the third floor courtyard.
that's Pasadena.
in the dark,
Pasadena.
right?
Pasadena. No, yeah, in the dark, so you can see the
Well,
lightsabers.
actually, there's two. It happens twice.
Yeah.
They're doing it. They're actually having their own competition, their own tournament on Saturday night from 6 to 9, and there'll be some not vendors, but people exhibiting the stuff that you can get there, and they're going to walk you through it. And then Sunday during the day, I want to say 11 to 2, will be kind of like you can go down there, ask some questions, maybe try it out a little bit, that kind of stuff, because they're also using it as a recruiting tool. So,
Oh, okay.
So yeah,
but
but
that Pasadena Garden, third floor.
if you're interested in Star Wars or Saber Legion or watching people beat each other with plastic sticks, which is always fun, come join us. Yeah.
That's right.
Excellent. So I went to Gen Con 50.
Awesome.
Cool.
I did not, when we signed up to go, we did not realize this was going to be the 50th anniversary of Gen Con. And as such, they don't have a final number, but it was the first Gen Con in the history of Gen Cons that has been sold out. They stopped selling tickets. There was a sign on every entrance door letting everyone know all passes are sold out.
Wow.
To give you an idea, last year their number was 60,819. So I'm assuming it was something over that.
Yeah.
It was. Bill and I, we didn't pre-gen for anything, which we found out is you have to do. You have
Okay.
to pre-gen yourself. But we
Important
didn't.
safety tip, folks.
Thank God for Games on Demand. We went to the Games on Demand and were able to get into a game. We played exactly one role-playing game the entire 4 days of the convention. Every time I tried to get into something, I'd look and then I'd go on my phone. I was looking through the catalog. You saw how big the catalog
Yeah,
was. I was
yeah.
going through the catalog looking for stuff. Then I'd get on my phone and see if there were any tickets or any spaces available, because they do everything with tickets.
Okay.
And I would go on, and the tickets cost money. It actually costs money. You pay to get in, and then you pay for every game you play.
Wow. Okay.
Oh, you didn't know
Almost,
I did not
almost
know
every
that.
game.
Yeah, they did that. I ran into that when Gen Con was out here for the 2 years they had it, and I thought that was bizarre.
Gen Con West.
Yeah,
Right.
I remember that.
Just imagine that, but with people.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's a reason why it was only 2 of them.
Right. But
Although it might change if they tried that again now.
maybe.
Wouldn't that compete with what you're doing, though?
But there's still,
You don't want
I mean,
that.
there's 3 conventions here.
Yeah.
It's not like, oh, we never have any conventions. I mean, and there's a bunch of conventions in Northern California too. I mean,
Exactly, and there's a bunch in San Diego.
Yeah,
too.
and Kingdom Con in San Diego. That actually is on a whole different weekend than us that we should probably go to.
Yeah, we keep flaking on it. But no, I think more to what I'm saying is that the hobbies that revolve around gaming, role playing, miniatures, all that stuff, are just in such a huge upswing of popularity now. And as Stork was mentioning earlier before the cast, becoming more and more mainstream. I think that we have the population of gamers, of active gamers in Southern California now to support something like a Gen Con West. Not that I'm inviting them to come over and take all our business, but
Right.
I'm just making the point that our numbers are swelling, and that's I think that much of that is due to the fact that gaming is just becoming more mainstream, and people are and more accessible, and people are showing legitimate interest in it, and these celebrities that are coming out as closet nerds like Vin Diesel and Nathan Fillion and the other people, like everybody in the Nerdist network and all that stuff. It's just really starting to get a lot of momentum, and becoming it's no longer this taboo thing that nobody wants to touch because only super nerds do it. Although super nerds do it because I'm a super nerd.
Right. But you if you pre-reg, you pay for your tickets online, and you can go pick them at the will call window. Good thing I didn't do that because I had 2 tickets to go see the Angry GM's live recording of GM Word of the Week. Met him, nice guy. I didn't even pick my tickets up from will call because the will call line was huge. I'm like, I don't stand on lines. So I'll just show up, and if I have to get the tickets, I'll go get them at a later time, and then if I tweet them and find them and hand them to them if I needed it. But it wasn't a problem. But we bought generic tickets, which are $2 each, and I think the games in Games on Demand required 2 of those.
Okay.
So it costs $4 to play a Games on
Oh
Demand.
wow, you needed a B ticket at least.
Right. There was one game I was trying to get into that was 7th edition Call of Cthulhu because I wanted to play. I know it's not demonstrably different from 6th edition,
Right.
but I wanted to play in a Call of Cthulhu game. That game was $20 a seat, and by the time I went on to the thing, it was sold out.
If you want to play Call of Cthulhu, I have several games ready. Actually, Chaosium is providing prize support.
Are they really?
They're
They're stepping up.
They really are. Actually, Chaosium and Palladium / Pellegrin? No, the guys who make Savage Worlds.
Pinnacle.
Are actually very active now at the convention, and we have a lot of some campaigns for Rifts that also have Rifts prize support outside of the convention prize support. We're actually getting to the point where we're drawing more industry people, which is really kind of neat.
Awesome.
So-
I met Kevin Simbeda
Oh, cool.
because we're going to be starting a Dead Rain game in about 2 weeks.
Nice.
So
That's pretty deep in the catalog there.
yes.
Next, you should do Recon.
I was amazed how many.
Oh yeah,
like
that's a
that
long story.
I was amazed at how large Palladium's catalog is.
Hey, I started there.
They have a sick number of games.
They had a whole miniature. He had a pretty big boot space, and he had a whole miniature library with bookshelves, and you can walk and peruse all these bookshelves. Of course, there were probably 5 sets of shelves there. 3 of them are all Rifts books, right?
Oh yeah, that's
right. But I was amazed. I had no idea that they had been. I mean, they've been around for 30 years now, or maybe
For as long as I've been gaming, I know that
Yeah, that was my entry point. I played
Yeah.
Robotech in '89.
the Robotech RPG. Yeah.
Yeah.
At that point in time, then that wasn't their first property. They had Palladium Role Playing, which was their generic fantasy.
Yeah, they're like GURPS.
They had already had, I think Simbedia's first book was Mechanoids, I think. It was one of those. Which pops up every now and then. It's been part of Rifts a couple of times now, I think. And that was one of his that he did. Recon was another one of those that I think was for somebody else that he brought in eventually. They used to have the Eastman and Laird TMNT / After the Bomb Mutant game.
Yep, I remember having that.
Beyond the
Facebook
Supernatural, Ninjas and Super Spies, Heroes Unlimited, which is still around. I mean, there's so much stuff in there. They just keep adding little bits here and there. It may be a 3 or 4 book set that's kind of self-contained. I mean, Beyond the Supernatural was 3 books
But just Riffs on his own.
Forever.
I mean, they make
Back
their
in the
money
day.
out of Riffs supplements.
Yeah.
There's got to be over 100 Riffs books.
Yeah.
At least.
Well, they had their own magazine for a while.
Yeah,
the
they still
Rifter.
do. They still
Okay,
do.
all right, there you
Yeah.
go.
It says, I was just looked it up here on the Wikipedia. It says the Expansive Rift series in 1990 to present. Palladium was founded in 1981.
Yeah. The I'm trying to think who I met Keith Baker did Eberron,
Okay, yeah.
Gloom.
Oh, I love that game.
I picked up a couple copies of it.
Oh, good. There's another copy that I'll let you look at that's basically Renaissance Fair costumes that you put transparent cards over.
I've heard of that one.
I have that at home.
Oh, wait.
I'll bring
That's
it.
not the we were talking about?
No, Gloom is like you're telling stories. You're trying to heap misfortune on your own family.
And
Yeah.
you have these clear cards that
Yeah, that's what I'm. I have
but
that.
it's exactly the same system, but it's Renaissance Fair.
Yeah, they use
okay.
the clear cards and like it blocks stuff out. And
Exactly.
so you can tell where you are and shit like that.
I tried to teach a game to my in-laws. That didn't go very well.
The space they have it in is ridiculous. It's in the convention center, which is I'm going to guess around the size of Anaheim Convention Center,
Okay.
roughly. Then there's 4 major big hotels across the street, and they're using all the meeting space in those halls. Might be 3, but they're using. We went to one hotel and the convention center, and then behind the convention center is Lucas Oil Field, which is a football stadium. They're using all of that too.
Oh, wow.
Now
Well,
that's
there's a lot
why.
of meeting space there. Yeah.
Yeah, well, if you're doing about 75,000, which is likely where they capped off at, that's a lot of people to put into space. So
Oh yeah, and I mean it looked every place was crowded, but I mean we made the mistake of going. We did not show up right when it opened because
yeah.
fuck that. But we probably got there at 10:30. Went to the dealer room, just to see people, and I mean you're walking at like 1/10 of a mile an hour, and you're not going to go any faster.
Oh,
People try, and it just annoys you because they start causing.
sounds like what
tumblings.
Comic-Con is like now.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. We went. I went there every day, at least once to that area because I was kind of looking to see what unusual stuff was there. And I found that's when I found Forge World. Is that the name of the
Yeah, Forge World
other
is-
company that makes the
It's the
bigger
GW
stuff?
company that makes basically resin cast larger kits and specialized kits for Warhammer 40K
Okay.
and Age of Sigmar.
They had a bunch of their stuff. They also Horus.
The Horus Heresy.
They had a lot of stuff for that.
Yeah, they almost exclusively do the 30K, which is 10,000 years before it's 30K. That's
Right.
the Horus Heresy. And they do pretty much exclusive. And they actually produce their own version of Warhammer that's just for 30K. Their own rule set and everything.
Yep.
I saw at least 3 dice vendors. Chessex had 2 booths.
Oh, wow.
Spread out strategically, so if you have trouble getting to this one because you forgot to pack dice, you can head over to the other one and probably avoid similar crowds. They were releasing Starfinder, which was the
Yep.
Pathfinder.
Paizo
Yeah.
science fiction version of Pathfinder. There was a line that was hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people long. The entire first day and the beginning of the second day, I think.
Wow.
Sometime in the morning on the second day, they finally sold.
We have a huge roster of that stuff running at
Good.
as well.
Awesome.
Yeah. That's our big Pathfinder's big.
Adventurers
thing.
Leagues and Pathfinder Society are very, very big.
Oh yeah, they're having they're the West Coast debut of it or so.
Yeah.
Right. There was also a huge line at FFG.
Well,
Yeah.
No surprise there, especially when they announced the new Star Wars game.
Well, I don't. That wasn't. I don't think that was available.
No, they-
there.
they-
They're
It's
running
coming out.
demos of it.
Oh,
Of
okay.
Legion, which is the new Star Wars miniatures game.
Okay. They had apparently. I think they had released something significant for the L5R card game.
Probably they've been previewing that stuff for the last few months. So
I think it was already. I think it's already out, but maybe they were adding. I don't know.
I don't think the game's
I don't
no.
think the game is actually officially released yet.
maybe
No,
they're
I've
demos.
seen probably demos because I've seen
Okay.
clan details for specific clans, how they work, and I've seen some, if not all, the rules. So I'm fairly certain they're probably doing demos for it, but I don't think it's out yet.
Sergudo says that the game was released.
Really?
I don't know.
At Gen Con,
I
probably.
don't know. Sergudo, was that at Gen Con? Do you know?
That would make sense.
That would totally
He
make
will
sense.
answer. But they had a huge line. I don't know what it was for, but both they and Paizo had enormous booths, size of baseball diamond. Huge.
Yeah. Well, they're the big players right now.
Yep.
Right.
They really are.
A lot of it looked like local game stores had booths there,
Oh, really?
and just had a lot of product out, a mix of stuff. Like I said, I didn't see a WotC booth, There was a Hasbro booth, and I couldn't get close enough to it, but I assume there was some D&D stuff in there. But WotC
hope.
itself did not have a big.
That is crazy to me.
Now they did have a lot of games, because if you look through the
Right.
the
The
program, there was a lot of games being run. There was one room for Pathfinder Society that was just a huge ballroom, packed, probably 75 or 80 tables just for Pathfinder Society.
Just for role playing a big set. So role playing doesn't require you to have several small tables. So several small rooms.
You know what though? You know what? The tables are spaced a little farther apart because Games on Demand was all in one big room, and there
Yeah.
were probably 20 plus tables in there. It was a large hall, but I mean there was probably 10 feet between tables,
Yeah.
and that helped a lot. I mean,
When you got that kind of space, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, I think that a lot of the people that play at our conventions have been spoiled. the
oh,
fact,
absolutely, yeah.
Because
there's
it's
like
ju-
one or two games per room.
Yeah,
right.
there's maximum of 4 games per room in any RPG.
Right.
Unless you're playing Adventurers League, they actually do play in a big hall. They actually play in my old space downstairs in the lower lobby.
Right, they love it though.
Yeah, but they love it. It
That's
works for
right.
them. They have that
Right.
open area in front where they can muster because they have a different way of doing things than we do. It works out much better for them, and that was a great.
That's the place that was
switch.
around the corner from the fitness center.
Yeah,
Okay.
but most conventions really just have convention style space, which is large ballrooms and
Yeah.
halls.
It wasn't a problem. It wasn't
yeah.
a problem. I mean, it's really only a problem if there's Happy Jacks people in the room. 'Cause
Or
they're the ones that scream and.
yeah, exactly. Or demand to have ambient music.
Oh my
Or else
God!
the game isn't right.
I didn't hear any of that. I didn't hear any ambient music.
Yeah, they just don't have that. And,
No.
and the fact that you can have that with us is fairly unique from what I've heard as far as conventions go. But wow, man, I just can't believe that you played like so little when you had the biggest game convention of all time.
We played. The only other thing we played was there was these BattleTech pods.
Mm-hmm.
Some guy, I guess, bought these things up. They used to be in arcades or something.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, virtual world.
There used to be one down here.
Yeah, in
Across
Pasadena,
Oh, okay.
Colorado.
I remember playing.
Well,
one.
this guy went around and bought all of them up, and he must have worked for the company that made them because he knew how to refurbish them. So he could go through and repair whatever was wrong,
Those
refurbish
were
them,
so
and upgrade
cool.
them. And he probably had 15 or 16 of them
The
there.
software on that was run off Amiga 4000s.
Yeah.
Yep.
Was it really?
Yeah.
Said he set them all up and everybody would just play each other in this room.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, well, no, it cost you 4 tickets.
Yeah.
And it was the first like a 7 or 8.
That's totally fine because you used to pay $25 to
Yeah.
go in
Oh, it's
there.
cheaper
And
than
it would
that.
connect to the internet back when it was still just
Yeah.
dial up and everything. That's
Right.
crazy.
Well, now they have MechWarrior Online, which is fantastic. I mean, if you're
Yeah, but the pods were cool though.
Yeah, but the immersive nature
Yeah.
of the pods was
You
just
were-
so
with
neat.
the
'Cause
hand-
you
It
had,
was all around you.
Yeah.
and you had all these
Yeah.
buttons and switches and
Sound,
that's
surround
so
sound,
good.
yeah.
Yeah, when you set your weapons up, when we were doing team events, the mics.
They also had that sort of like slot car race.
Red Planet.
Red Planet, yeah, that was really fun.
Yeah, we were mining vehicles on Mars.
They had Cheech Marin as the guy who did the introduction for it.
I didn't know.
I-
I only played that a couple times, usually with you, and you kill me with bolt guns. But that's neither here nor there.
Well, you throw hot bolts at people, they die.
But it was fun. Saturday was the cosplayer day. A lot of cosplayers. The best thing I saw was Deadpool. Mm-hmm. Guy had a magnificent Deadpool costume. Who was cosplaying Gandalf?
Oh, that's funny.
That's
So
so
he's-
meta and so
Right?
freaking Deadpool. It's so great.
He's got a fantastic Deadpool costume, and then he's got the shittiest
Gandalf.
like gray yarn beard,
Bought
with
off
a
of
wizard
Party
hat,
City, freaking
right,
Gandalf.
and a staff.
That's great.
I couldn't get a picture of him because he was in a hurry. He was rushing somewhere.
Yeah, you had to go take the mask off so he could breathe.
Oh yeah. Well, inside it was fine. Outside
Yeah,
it was
but
awful.
you can't breathe through that thing. Plus, he has a beard on.
Right. Well, it was a shit beard.
Okay.
Which probably makes it worse.
Right, yeah, it probably
breathing
does.
through a mop.
Exactly.
It probably
Is
is.
it Mysteries at the Museum bad?
But if anyone has any questions about what I thought of Gen Con or any specific things, one weird thing just about Indianapolis in general, Lyft and Uber.
Don't exist?
Absolutely, yeah. Well, we were at an Airbnb,
Oh, okay.
which is about 3 miles, maybe 4 miles away from the convention. So was humid enough where it was not within walking distance. And I probably used an Uber, or mostly Lyft, about 11 or 12 times.
Oh wow.
Because we were there for 5 days, and we would, let's go here, we're going to go to that bar, and anyway, get anywhere. Not expensive, comparatively. Oh, one Prius. Almost every other car was a big car.
Well, you're close to Detroit.
That was the shocking thing. A couple SUVs, a minivan.
You know it snows back there, right? Just saying.
Not in August.
No, but people aren't changing. They're not swapping their
that's true.
cars out.
Yeah, they're not putting chains on a Prius.
Right.
Yeah.
But I was amazed. I mean, this one woman pulled up in a big Chrysler LeBaron.
Oh wow. Yeah.
But that, I mean, contrast that with out here.
Yeah.
You almost never get a non-hybrid Lyft or Uber.
Yeah, and you go to
unless
Colorado-
you specifically ask for a big car.
He's right, though. You go to Colorado or even Oregon, there's a lot of Subarus with the four-wheel drive, a lot of
Right.
trucks, and a lot
Right.
of Jeep and a lot
Well,
of
there's no.
SUVs.
Well, yeah, Colorado's also mountainous.
Yeah,
Yeah.
climate.
No, but there's. I had somebody tell me one time in North Texas that there's nothing between them and Canada but barbed wire fences, and they're right in the middle of that. So
But it was fun. A very beautiful city.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been there. I actually
Fantastic food.
know somebody from there. Yeah. Chicago too. That actually, you'd be. People like to think of the Midwest as this cultureless, barren wasteland. No, that is nothing could be further from the truth. It is. It is a fantastic place filled with wonderful people and wonderful things to do.
That was fantastic. It was.
Are they paying you to say that? You seem
No,
you
actually,
seem,
no.
He seems very.
I have a lot of friends from
Flyover
Wisconsin
side.
and Indianapolis, and they really resent that stereotype. So I'm trying to.
He works for Flyover Tour.
right.
Actually, two of our really best friends have moved to Chicago a few years ago.
yes, but away from Wisconsin, so that's not the selling point that you think it is.
Yeah. I love the cheese, though.
Well, duh.
Good restaurants, but a big city, you would expect good restaurants. We're not going to have.
Especially downtown near the convention center.
Yeah.
That's
It was fun. It was a lot of fun. Oh, that reminds me. S.B. Lloyd. Apparently, I just got a text from C8 from Dave 77. S.B. Lloyd had to get evacuated out of because he lives in the great state of Texas.
Oh wow!
Oh,
There's
wow.
a giant hurricane coming.
Yeah,
through,
yeah.
So
Stay
our
safe.
thoughts are with you
Yeah,
and our
be
other listeners in the great state of.
They said 3 feet of water.
yes,
could
30. They said up
possible.
to 35 inches.
30.
Well, the part that baffles me is I travel for work, and
That's
I've
like
been.
India.
Well, yeah, but see, I watched
monsoon.
I watching the storm come come towards shore and down by Brownsville. Well, right outside of Brownsville, up by Corpus Christi, is Lake South Padre Island.
Mm-hmm.
South Padre Island might be 3 feet high in the middle of it. They're shooting a 12-foot storm surge.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. Are there people on that island? Is there like a...
But it's I assume not right now.
No, that's not what I meant, but...
But I don't know because it's not. I mean, it's connected to the land. There's a bridge. It's just a giant party spot.
Yeah.
It's mostly
Wow.
restaurants and hotels.
Wow.
And I don't
more.
expect
So
them to
there's
be there.
structures, yeah.
Yeah, that's. I don't think
Yeah.
we'll be there much longer. But
I had to fly there for work a long time ago into Corpus Christi, which was like an hour and a half or so from the Navy Air Base, where we were testing something, and just a rainstorm came in, and there was a near my hotel there was a road that went out, and I don't even know what it's called, but there's like a bunch of small islands, and there's like not bridges, they're like built up from
The little
seafloor.
dirt mounds that go up.
Yeah,
like a
there's
berm.
like a berm. There's a specific name for it, I
Oh, okay.
think. But it's got a road on it, and you can ride basically from island to island. And these are islands where there's not even any place to pull over. The island is probably like 30 feet in diameter.
Right.
But at the very end, there's like a fishing store and a restaurant and stuff, and I wanted to go out and see it. And I'm driving out there, and this rainstorm's coming in, and the water from the rainstorm. I was listening to the news. This is not a hurricane or anything that's coming in. Water from the storm is like washing over the road as I'm driving on it. I'm like, I'm turning my ass around.
Yeah, I'm done.
I don't even like to fish. Screw this. No, that rain in Texas is no fooling, man. I mean,
Yeah.
Texas is the only place, and I've traveled all over, where I've had to literally pull over because I can't see because it's raining so hard.
Wow.
And it's like, well, let's just sit here and hope I don't get run into.
It's crazy. All right, so our thoughts are with you.
Yeah.
Superheroic conflict from Clockwork Monk. Do one of you guys want to read the first email?
Sure, I'll read it. This is Superhero Conflict from Clockwork Monk, Dear Stu, and the Friday Night Douche Crew. It's Clockwork Monk from New York. I'm writing almost immediately after my most recent game wrapped up because I'm pretty excited and would love your advice on something. I'm running a superhero campaign using Fate Core with Venture City Supplement, which my group is enjoying quite immensely. I've found, however, that characters in superhero games are really powerful. What do you think? In my first session, I didn't realize how powerful they would be, so they steamrolled over the opposition with no problem. 2 of my players are practically physically invulnerable, and another can instantly take out the opposition in a single blow.
One Punch Man.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's what I was thinking of.
What I realized was that I need to take a page from the best superhero comics, movies, and shows and find a way to challenge the heroes in different ways. We know they'll never die, or if they do, they'll never stay dead. So how do you challenge them instead? By making superheroism part of the conflict. I don't think I can ever run combats in the same way again, even in non-superhero games. Before, I used to run it as putting characters in a mostly featureless area where they had to pummel each other until one side gave up. Maybe there was interesting terrain or hidden dangers they had to deal with, but mostly combat was a standard affair of just get past. Now I realized the virtues of putting in ever-evolving situations and ever-shifting goals. In the latest session, my superheroes could have just spent the cinematic fight wailing away through an army of goons until they reached the boss at the end. Yawn. Instead, they're on a moving train with hostages. However, they discovered that before they could rescue them, they had to defuse a bomb with a dead man switch hidden amongst the hostages. But when they finally defused it, they discovered an oncoming train about to collide with them. Meanwhile, the bad guys shot at them and made being a superhero really, really difficult, especially since one of the heroes realized they had a personal connection to one of the goons shooting at him.
Oh.
Yeah, it's excellent.
That's really good. It no longer mattered that I had physically invulnerable characters at the table. They still had to deal with saving innocent people, using the non-combat skills that they had while in the middle of a stressful combat situation. So I'm writing you to ask for more advice. I'm afraid I might be limited by my own imagination and regurgitate the same scenarios. Hostage crisis, bomb, public transportation, rinse, repeat. Do you have any tips and tricks for coming up with interesting challenges or having fresh and unique conflicts? Thanks, and take a drink. You deserve it. Douchely yours, Clockwork Monk. P.S. Since the last time I ruined, I've become a cocktail enthusiast. Do any of you have a cocktail you particularly like? I'd love to try it.
I used to just drink rusty nails, just because the name was always so.
You just want to feel manly?
Yeah,
I'm
that's not really a
drinking
cocktail,
Rusty
is it?
What's a rusty nail?
It's like, I don't know, 7 kinds of rum and something with coloring in it. Yeah,
Yeah, in a dirty glass.
yeah.
I'm a pure wine guy.
It might be Drambuie. It might be rum and Drambuie.
It's a lot of sweet.
Blind Russian is always good.
Blind Russian's good. Pisco Sour, which is my nation's national drink, which is basically the grape, the final press of grapes to make a hard liquor. It's kind of like vermouth, and it's mixed with lime, a little bit of sugar, and an egg white. And it's the national cocktail of Peru and Chile.
Is it whipped or something?
It's stirred and whipped, yeah.
Okay.
And it's actually really, really
What's
tasty.
it called?
Pisco, Pisco sour, which is the lime part is the sour part. But
So Pisco is the name of
is the name of the liqueur
okay.
that it's based off of, which is, like I said, like vermouth.
Is that especially there? Can you get it most reputable places?
Most reputable places that have any type of connection to Latin America, most
okay.
likely. But I mean, if you have a fairly cosmopolitan bar that you go to, they might know what it is. But there's plenty of things online letting you know how to make that kind of stuff, and there are, and you can just go to Amazon and buy Pisco. Or just do it with vermouth. I've done that before. It's not bad.
Cool. All right, thank you for the email. Oh wait, he had a gaming question.
You had a gaming question. You just focused on the liquor.
So other
New
tropes,
podcast idea.
other tropes for invulnerable PCs that will create problems. Someone on the phone, who was that? Someone threw out collateral damage.
Yeah.
Having to deal with that.
Well, first of all,
Unlike Superman, who apparently doesn't have to deal with any kind of
none of that. Well, first of all, I think you're on the right track because you're already
Absolutely.
very aware of the fact that you might be tripping over yourself, right? But you've discovered a new shiny, which I think is really great. And this is because you're right. This is what superheroes. I'm reminded of spoilers of the latest Spider-Man. No, it was in the trailers where he's holding the ferry together,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So again, collateral damage. It's not quite a hostage situation, but there's innocent bystanders.
Or Batman, where he needed to be at two places at once to save both of the people he wanted to save, and he just had to make that
Right.
choice.
Or the Avengers, even, where they have to clear people out of the way because there's an invasion force coming down on their heads,
And
and so
our
they
entire
have to.
city's being elevated into the sky,
Well,
and
there's
Captain
that
America's
one.
going, I'm not going anywhere until
Right.
everybody's off this thing. And you're like, okay, Mr. Conviction.
And I don't know what kind of superhero game you're playing, but what I used to do when we played Champions was that I took a page from the old Marvel comics and Stan Lee and had their secret identities almost more interesting than their superhero stuff.
Right.
So if well, I remember one of them was a radio DJ, and then like his they had like a bomb scare come into the thing, but he was online, right? So we couldn't change into superhero self. So
Speaking of Spider-Man,
all
too.
of these things.
Yeah, I mean, Spider-Man, one of the major conflicts in the Spider-Man books is Peter Parker trying to be Peter Parker
Exactly.
while also trying to be Spider-Man.
Exactly.
The whole dual nature of your identity is actually just a mine for you to just dig things into. I remember playing in a Heroes game where the real life drama of the character that I was playing actually completely mirrored the superhero drama, but in a much stepped down sort of way. So in the end, when my mortal version of my character resolved his issue, the way that he resolved that issue was actually the way that inspired me to resolve my superhero issue in a different way because of the same type of problem solving. I find that when you distill these type of things to their base core, what you're really trying to do is produce drama and conflict. And not all drama and conflict needs to revolve around combat. And if you just basically sit down and say, what kind of conflict do I want to set up? What kind of dramatic scene do I want to have these characters go through? Instead of going, how do I set up a fight? Who's the bad guy? What's the antagonist? Actually, sort of zoom out, and Fate Core is fantastic about this because of the fractal, that you can just zoom in and out of the scale and think of things in a broader sense, and then sort of once you have a bigger picture of what exactly the kind of conflict you want to have, you can actually put in the nuts and bolts of it, and not just think of creating scenarios like most D&D games are just, I'm actually just, what's the challenge rating? I'm creating a scenario. I'm building a tactical situation for my characters to overcome. There are a lot of ways to do puzzles in a game, and a lot of ways that superpowers just will not help you.
Well, and that's where I was going to say next, which is there's a difference between hamstringing your superhero, having kryptonite so you depower your superhero, and there's another thing where, despite the fact that they have all these superpowers, they're having a hard time solving a problem, whether that's trying to get the ferry held together after it got blown apart, or whether it's trying to save a kid from a 20-story burning building and you can't fly, or whatever that is. Those are much more interesting than just standing in the hail of bullets saying, "Everybody take cover, I'll handle this."
Or you're in the middle of a situation and all kinds of shit's going down. You don't have your superhero costume or
Right.
any way to change into your alter ego, so you have to
Without
figure out
being
a way
observed, yeah.
to figure out a way to resolve the problem without being observed. That's a common trope in comic books.
It is, and like I remember I had a Champions game, and they just, all right, you're GMing today, and I'm like, okay, so they came up with characters. I didn't have any plots, I didn't have any villains, so I focused on their backstories. I don't think they even they still had superpowers because, they're just dressed up as normal people, but they kept, it was inconvenient to change, they couldn't, and so I managed to just play it all in the real world at the time, and they have more fun with that.
Absolutely. People want to explore their own creation,
Sure.
and as a GM, it's kind of like your responsibility to take whatever they've created in a character and put them in situations where they can actually flesh out and live in that skin. And I think the more talented GMs really help players develop characters in game, and that's actually, I find, a lot more entertaining than simply tackling a puzzle or a boss or anything like that. Some of my favorite sessions are just straight up RP sessions where you're put into situations where you have to interact with NPCs and other players, in interesting ways. But you know, another really great example is taking something that's completely non-superhero related, like a different type of story trope or storyline, and basically making it into a superhero
Transplant
story
it over.
and transplant it over.
Yeah.
It really adds to a whole lot of freshness of things, because you know, what if your superheroes are stuck on a ship off the coast of Somalia and pirates attack, but they're mutant pirates and have powers. So you're basically Pirates of the Caribbean meet superheroes in the modern world. There's a lot of different things that you can just transplant different themes into other things to just switch things up and not make it just a superhero.
You can take the whole plot of Tombstone and turn
Exactly.
that into modern times, where the rival superhero group, other superhero group across town is just pissed off that or whatever it is. You can easily borrow those tropes, and I think that stuff is infinitely more interesting than when you finally get down to Dr. Doom standing in his hallway and, you know, like you said, wave after wave of goons comes at you.
A nice
And
monologue,
not
you fight them.
And not to say that it isn't fun now and again, but if that's all you get all the time, not so much.
You could also, I mean, there's also the scenarios where you could start to deal with government intervention, or maybe
sure.
there's an anti-supers bill coming up, and you suddenly start to have to worry about your public image
Right.
and your public relations efforts, and you know how you handle certain situations because people are surrounding you with cell phones, taking pictures of whatever it is you're doing.
But again, as superheroes, you still want to be superheroic. As a GM, be careful about throwing too many hamstrings into your superheroes. You know,
Well, for example,
it seems like fun, but after a while, they're like, you know, great. Now, you know, every time I pop my claws, I'm going to get shot at or whatever it is.
Right. I have a rule when I GM is that I'll never have two scenes back to back that will frustrate my players.
yeah,
Because during or after the second one, they're going to start making poor decisions and derailing your game because they're frustrated. So you know, it's okay to take things away and to really, for dramatic effect, make something frustrating for the characters. But you can't do that in too much of a chain, because then the characters will sort of like give up on the narrative and just start doing wacky crap just to entertain themselves because they feel frustrated they can't move the plot along.
right.
Which is something that happened to me very recently in a D&D game I'm playing, and I'm like, don't do two of those back to back. It's a bad idea. But it's not a question of frustrating your players or foiling your players.
Right.
And I think that a really bad attitude to have as a GM is the attitude of I'm their
Confrontational.
Their confrontation.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be confrontational with players. It's not really your role. Your role is to create a framework for them to develop their characters and to tell a story. So you know, if you're writing adventures that are basically all about setting up a situation for them to combat, you're going to set yourself in a role of basically the antagonist as in and of yourself. And you want to sort of avoid that kind of attitude. And there are a lot of different ways to make things more interesting that don't involve direct confrontation. I mean, for the superhero thing, take it, for instance, an entire session where the players actually become aware of what their public image actually is. They actually talk to some people, there's a media blitz about something, and they actually start to become aware that collateral damage and all these things that they've been doing because they've been doing wacky stuff is making them very unpopular. And there's another group of superheroes that basically think, no, those guys aren't superheroes, they're supervillains. They're not even
Right.
being considered responsible for all the damage and all the destruction that they do. Or just simply coming across as somebody that you think you've helped, whose life you've actually ruined. You know, it's like you break into the museum and you stop them from stealing this priceless artifact that is magical and will do something, raise zombies or whatever it's going to do, but you destroyed this exhibit that this one guy, paleontologist, has been working on for 10 years, and there's no going back from it because it's completely shattered. You completely destroyed this guy's life. And becoming aware of that and going, oh, maybe I should think better about things that I'm doing, and the after effects of what you do. Consequences are already exist, and a lot of times people don't really pick up on those consequences because they don't have the right point of view. So shifting the camera sometimes will completely give you a great opportunity to switch up the type of drama and actually have the players look at their characters from the outside in instead of from the inside out.
There used to be a comic called, I think it was called Collateral Damage, and it was about this team of people that went and cleaned up after the superheroes. In fact, in the new Spider-Man movie, they touch on that.
Yeah.
But it's it was kind of an interesting thing, but kind of a bummer, because, you know, when the Hulk punches somebody through the wall, you kind of just dig that. That's really cool, and you move on. And then to see this people have somebody has to go fix that now. You know, there's insurance
Or,
companies.
you know,
are
there
going
was
up
a family having dinner in the
Right.
next room.
Exactly.
All right. Thank you very much, Clockwork Monk, for the email. I'll read the next one because this is some mail for the grinder from Zaras in Poland. Zaras.
Zaras?
I'm assuming Zaras. Hello, O mighty war bosses and noobs of WOG.
Gotta say it right.
WOG!
See, I was thinking it was like
Orc thing.
Og, like the castle Og. You wouldn't just say Og.
That is the battle cry of the orcs in Warhammer 40k.
Oh, okay, all right. Charis here from Poland, writing in after a long break. I would like to start with some praises. Your new segment, Primetime, is another glorious treat. Oh, it's been discontinued. Sorry.
Primetime was our miniature painting show.
Yes, and it's gone now.
Oh, bummer. I had fun doing it.
The numbers just never, they just went. It never went. And the catching banner and helpful tips actually made me dig up my old horde and paint orcs and dark angels for my Warhammer 40k collection. Also, your APs are splendid as always. Both the well-liked and seasoned Moat of Sin, Prince Adrian, will be sorely missed. That's a spoiler for those of you who aren't caught up, like by 2 or 3 episodes. And lighthearted Justice Heroes and the brand new Bloodblade and Tusk, of course, the podcasts are entertaining as ever. Okay, having done that, let me bring it back to my point from Season 1, Episode 4. Nah, just kidding. Good, because I don't remember Season 1, Episode 4. I don't think we did it first season. Actually, this may be a bit long. You were right. I feel like I'm going to be a bit gibbish on you, but I hope the number of points brought up will be in digestible chunks. Anyway, have a drink, especially you who have the dubious pleasure of reading this.
Brace yourself.
Point 1, let's go to a subject that was inspired by the events of Moat of Sin. How do you deal with a player death? Or more precisely, player death. Oh, because of vampire. This not brought about by Kimmy's character's death, but 2 thumbs up for the class. Dignity as she dealt with the loss. I'm certain all of the Moat of Sin fans will long remember the Zarika of the Moat, as some may have picked up by now. But Tim's absence from the game because of various factors. How do you deal with well-established characters that are important to the plot and the story when the player suddenly is forced to move, quit, the game dies? How do you propose to deal with all the plot holes, loose ends, and plans in motion that this creates? You want to talk about that a little bit first?
Yeah, sure. That's a great question, actually.
With players leaving, well, what we did in the Moat of Sin game, Tim just couldn't. We had our hiatus for Fair, and then when Fair was over and we started playing again, he just couldn't make it anymore.
He couldn't commit. He did the adult thing, which is he basically said, I can't commit. I have these other things, and they took precedence.
Yeah,
as much as he loved Moat.
Yeah, and he
let us know.
He had family things that he would have to do every day during the time that we would be running the game. So what we did is right when we ended was the party was headed off to go to Pornvale to knock down the Castle Pornvale, and that's what they called it. I had another name for it once, and I can't remember what it was, but they kept calling it that, so I just called it that.
It wasn't as good as Pornvale, I
It's not as good
guarantee.
as Pornvale. And that's where we ended the session, was they were rushing off to go attack this place. So in that next session, I had an opportunity because Scully Wallace, who was the Nosferatu Tim played, who's no longer in the game, would be going through the sewers to go and set explosives and stuff underneath the castle, while everyone else was on the surface going to surround the place, mop up survivors. So he was separated from the party, and basically they just don't know what happened to him. We left it completely open. If Tim's schedule changes in such a way that he can come back to the game, he could come back. Maybe he was, seriously injured, and it took him a while to get back.
He's
to
in
health,
torpor.
or he was in good in
To be
torpor.
buried and in torpor, or maybe he just decided to leave for whatever.
Maybe he's
reason.
like, oh, damn it! I heard Adrian died in Riley's Prince. Shit.
Yeah, or whatever.
I'm out.
Yeah, so there's all these opportunities for him to come back, no matter however, if he
Right.
wants to.
Screw you guys. I'm going home.
But nobody was found, and so who
Right.
knows?
Now, if you have a character loss, that's something you always have to deal with in a game. I mean, if a character dies, our first couple sessions were about the ramifications of Prince Adrian having been killed. And now it's Prince Riley, and she's trying to figure out what to do, and she's finding out about all kinds of stuff that she didn't really know the whole story on, because Adrian kind of kept some of that stuff close to the vest. But a lot of the, not all of them, but a lot of the next like 2 sessions was her dealing with the shockwave of that character death, and asserting her authority here, and making sure things are working the way they're supposed to over there, and organizing things so she can keep control and all of that stuff. But
I also I wasn't a fan of it at first. I don't think I quite understood it, but I also like what you do when somebody just can't make a session, which is you just don't, that character just for what, you don't have to come up with a whole reason. You just they're just not there.
they're not there. What?
Yep. What? Yeah. What are you talking about? So even though when we were about ready to start a fight, I couldn't make the next session. That just wasn't there. They fought without me.
What are you talking about?
And it, part of your brain wants to write a story about why that character isn't there, but the other part is just like, it doesn't really matter. It really doesn't matter, and it doesn't harm the game.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, you also have to keep into account. You want to spend energy on things that actually have an effect on things overall. Right. If you're just trying to make up a story because somebody can't show up one day when they can easily just not be there, there's really no reason to spend energy on that. Although I do enjoy people coming up with little side stories about things during their absences. What I often do when I run a game is I hand everybody one of those little composition books that I get the 99-cent store.
Oh, yeah.
And go, this is for you. Just put your character name on it. Whenever you want to feel like writing something or jotting something down, just jot it on there. And if they don't make a session, they're free to write down a little story of why they didn't make it and set aside and share it with the rest of the group. I think that putting that responsibility onto the player adds agency, allows them to develop things for their character in the background. And not only that, as a GM, gives you some really nice little plot hooks if they write it cleverly, because whatever happened in that situation, you can come up with a great idea of interweaving that into your plot.
They might end up creating some NPCs for you and some story elements and some locations and stuff that you haven't even worked on yet.
If you're not relying on your players' creativity, you're losing out.
It's also a great insight to the player's mind, because sometimes as a GM, you're shocked about what they're seeing as opposed to what you're trying to tell them. You're like, oh my, maybe I'm not being obvious enough with my clues, or oops, or wow, they've got a completely different idea and this is better than what I had. I'm going with that.
It's similar to the superhero idea. I had no idea everybody considered me a villain. It's when you give your players an opportunity to tell part of their own story, it's helpful for everybody, and it's only a plus. I can't think of a single downside of it, especially if it's like a little aside where they're just writing something down. None of the other players are involved. It's just you and the GM, the player and the GM, basically having a conversation about what something happens.
But you don't require it or anything either.
I don't require it, but it's certainly encouraging. I will definitely throw people some extra XP or some bennies for doing something like that. Because heck, man, if you're working to make my job easier, here's some bennies.
Sure,
I'm all about it.
Right, absolutely.
But dealing with character death, I think one of the major things you have to consider is, do you play in a game where characters die? I know a lot of games where people will reinvent the wheel. They'll do anything and everything to stop character death because they just don't want to deal with it. Mortality being what it is, you don't want to face it at all.
Right.
But I said it in a previous podcast at Con, actually, and I'm saying, and I say this with absolute conviction, if you don't deal with player character death, or just avoid it and never have it as part of your narrative, you are basically shutting off a major part of life and the way that it's represented in your role-playing game. Everybody dies.
It takes away any danger and sense of what's the word I'm looking for? Danger, I guess.
Nothing has value unless there's a sense of loss.
It's truly perilous.
Risk. One can actually say is, death is there to remind you how precious life is, and when you never deal with the fact that somebody might just meet their end at whatever thing that you're doing, it really lessens the impact of victory.
And we have discussed this before. I mean, there's many ways a character can die. Sometimes it's GM oversight, sometimes it's player stupidity, but sometimes you feel, like but if everything's above board and it's a legitimate critical role or whatever it is, and everybody sees it, it's like, wow, okay.
Yeah.
But it's still tough to handle. And as a side note, like when a character dies, I kind of feel like if my character dies, I need to get up and leave, because what happens after that I wouldn't know about. Second of all, I'm not going to sit here and watch them play a game. You sort of feel like you need to go somewhere else and maybe come up with a new character.
Right. I mean, do you feel, and I'm just going to ask the question to the table all the way around, that if a player character dies, that death should have some kind of significant meaning in the narrative, or is it okay to just have, sorry, he's just dead? It's completely meaningless, and it has absolutely no real ramifications on who they were or what they're doing, but they're just dead, and that's just it.
I think it depends on what kind of setting you've got.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's more just the context.
Yeah, it could be as well.
I mean, when I think of player death, the first one that comes to my mind is from a Five Rings game, where there was two brothers and a half brother, and they were like the core of the group. In the middle of this fight, it was actually an ambush. We all expected to live, but no, the half brother gets outright murdered. It was one of those ridiculous die rolls where it was like, oh my god, holy shit, Al, you're dead. And then, and most people don't care. He's a guy. To them, to the other side, to most people on our side, he's just a guy. But to three players in that group, it's like, that was my brother. Now all of a sudden it's revenge time.
Sure.
I start blowing through my honor because it's like, nope, I'm not losing two brothers today. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you were like in a Shadowrun game and they put together a team, you guys should have paid more attention.
But if it's even then though, if it's a long-standing team,
sure.
I mean, because that was about the missing player thing. I ran a Shadowrun game that had 13, 14 players in it, I think.
Too big.
Not
way too big.
Rarely at the same time.
Usually 68-hour combat.
Yeah. Or 68-hour planning period, 1 hour combat.
Oh no, that game was almost entirely just off the cuff. But what happened was what it gave me was a player base. It was, hey guys, we're playing Shadowrun. Who can make it? 5 of you? Great. You guys get the call. And certain people had bonds with other people in the group.
Oh, okay.
Other people actively disliked other people.
Right.
We had one guy, my brother-in-law, who spent the entire time trying to sell the team out.
Actually, as a sidebar, that is a really great way for adults to play role-playing games.
Yeah.
Because I originally did it with my Conan the Barbarian game, where everybody made a character, and they made a character at every level, 1 through 20. So I would write an adventure, and each adventure was a short story, like an R.E. Howard story. It had a beginning and an end. And I go, this is a 16th level story because I want them to face this. There's your character at 16th level. Their entire lifespans were actually covered with their characters, and they had notes at every epoch of their time period.
That's awesome.
And like the R.E. Howard stories were, where you started. The first story was Conan as a king, and then the third story was him as a young thief. They bounced all over time.
They weren't chronological.
They weren't necessarily chronological. They were just adventurers in this world that every once in a while, a certain number of them would meet, do a thing, and then go their separate ways.
Roy Thomas was very underrated for him organizing that and getting that timeline together. Roy Thomas did the comic book, and he's really underrated for having assembled all of that and worked out the timeline and filled in the blanks too.
It's actually, there are people that actually make a career of studying that kind of stuff. And as a matter of fact, the new Modiphius Conan hired a bunch of those people to actually help write it. And the whole game is completely based just on R.E. Howard's work. And the art is, Frazetta, fantastic. It's just a beautiful.
It's Val Merrick, I think.
Yeah.
Who used to draw the comics back in the day.
I'm sorry, I diverged from the actual point there.
Point two.
Getting geek all over the place.
Yeah.
What do you think about the mirror universes? By that I mean the alternative realities that are reverse of the status quo, like the Mirror Darkly universe from Star Trek. But not limiting to just that sort of blatant reversal. An intriguing version of this was the theory proposed on your podcast, that Star Trek is actually much darker. This was my theory. Star Trek is actually much darker, with the Federation being a version of a uber meritocracy Starfleet-oriented regime. In my case, the whole idea was you never see any enlisted men in Star Trek. Or very rarely.
Yeah.
You'll see like one.
A yeoman.
Right.
One.
But for the most part, you don't see the enlisted men. You don't see the guys that work on the phaser banks or the guys mopping the floors,
the janitorial staff.
Oh, please. There's red-shirted Roombas everywhere.
But actually, I always assumed that at their level of technology, the most mundane and menial tasks were automated.
You know, in the original though, there
Maybe.
were guys.
But there's no enlisted men?
There were
There's
guys in like jumpsuits with clipboards and stuff that were walking
Right,
around. But
that's the
that
thing.
was
I mean,
the original.
is literally Starfleet a bunch of officers and no enlisted men?
You start at ensign and up, and that's it. Yeah.
Well, no, because Chief.
Chief. Yeah.
Chief
well,
O'Brien.
Well, chief is
That's a chief
basically
petty
a
officer
chief
that's
petty
non-commissioned.
Yeah, but it's still
No,
it's
no.
an NCO,
Yeah, exactly.
He's the one thing that
Senior enlisted. though.
senior enlisted.
He's the one point where all the shit flows downhill to.
Exactly.
That sucks. For that guy.
You have nobody under you to blame for shit. Come on.
Yeah, but it's
Yeah.
Star Trek. You make up words. You start stringing random words together.
Right.
You just word stupid. Oh, it's the quantum flux thing. That.
It's the janitorial capacitor quantum reflex engine. That's a damn good point.
And so I was like, maybe there's like a caste system that we never see in Star Trek. Maybe there's other people who are like, no, you quite don't make the grade to go to the academy. We can find you work though.
You know what? There's a lot to be said for making hippie shit sinister. I think that's actually really cool. You know, and no, everybody must be equal.
Yeah, Star Trek actually was Star. In my case, this was brought about by quite an unlikely source, mainly the TFS Dragon Ball abridged parody. Mainly a scene where some of the main characters are discussing that a dog being a world president is really progressive. This, along with the depictions of Dr. Briefs, one of the richest people on Earth and whose daughter is married to the second strongest mortal in the universe, depicted by an old school American right-winger, made something click in my head. What if the story in Dragon Ball isn't the true story, but the history written by those that control the present? With a council of the richest, most influential actually ruling, with a puppet dog president. With the notorious Red Ribbon Army, an actual group of freedom fighters, just like in Eskov's The Last Ring Bearer, where the story of the Lord of the Rings is a propaganda of the victors that dehumanizes the beaten and depicting them as monsters. Anyway, what do you think about those alternative depictions, both alternative realities and shifted views on established worlds? Is there a dark mirror in which you would like to run a game in?
Wow,
That's a really good question.
yeah.
I have to say though, that is something I've stolen for plots. Is I'll take a thing and turn it on its ear all the time. So I mean, I guess I've been doing a dark mirror for my plot hooks most of the time anyway.
How about a utopia paranoia?
Where it really is awesome.
It really
Yeah, it
is.
really is awesome, but you just can't handle it. You have to be the one. You and your group of people just can't dig
You're
it.
the one dude in the Matrix to go, this is too perfect, I can't take it. Actually, that's a good thing too. Doing like the first version of the Matrix that was too perfect,
Oh, that'd be kind of cool.
Oh yeah, that
and
would
actually
be awesome.
roleplay people discovering it. That'd actually be kind of awesome too.
Just playing in the Matrix would just be awesome.
Yeah. Well, it's like playing in the holodeck. I remember my dad being amazed by the idea of the holodeck, going, "You can tell any story you want. That is the perfect framework. You can do anything you want." I'm like, "Yeah, it's great."
Well, that's where all the enlisted guys are. They ain't getting any work done.
Right. Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
mopping the jizz. Like,
They only very rarely touch on what most holodecks are actually used for. That was with what's his name? What's the name of that character?
what?
They had to have someone with problems.
Oh, basically the guy that was played by the guy who played Murdoch from
Murdoch,
A-Team.
yeah.
I can't remember the character's name, but he was like really awkward and socially.
Blake or
He was really socially awkward, but
Yes.
turned into like this badass in the holodeck,
in the holodeck, yeah.
in the fantasy world. But dude,
Oh, you do like a Westworld version of holodeck characters. Like their programs still exist and interact with each other inside some sort of memory bank afterwards. Yeah, you know what they did to me when
your entire Star Trek campaign that surprises somebody. And really, those kind of reactions are the things that you want to elicit from your players, because those are the things that sort of activate the salivary glands of creativity when you're exposed to something that's radically different than your regular way of thinking or what you think that was going to happen. Those are the things that really get your creativity into overdrive. So yeah, creating alternate realities, even it doesn't even have to go as far as creating an alternate reality. Like I mentioned in the superhero thing, just sort of tipping it over where they find out the opinions of other people about them that they don't know. Uncovering things from a different point of view can be just as much of a revelation as dipping into a completely different kind of reality. Because generally all of us are comprised of our own senses, and the only input that we can get is from those senses. So our point of view is very limited. When you start looking at things from different angles and forcing characters to look at things from different angles, that can be just as impactful as taking a bunch of taking the Scooby-Doo gang and putting them in a Cthulhu mystery or whatever you want to do as far as changing the trope or tipping things on their ear.
All right. As a point to 3, on a lighter note, what is the dumbest, most callous, irresponsible thing you did when playing?
Oh God!
This is a question for each and every member of the podcast. On my part, it was playing a Vampire the Masquerade game on my very first session ever. When flying to South America for some high-priority mission from the Camarilla, one of the team members got high on blood laced with cocaine and tore the pilot to shreds. After some tense moments, we ended with my character barely managing to keep the plane in the air, with finally having landed in sight and no real chances of landing the plane. One of my coterie members grabbed a parachute and jumped out. Latching onto the idea, I said, "Hold the steers," which I assume means hold the stick,
right?
To Mordor. Hold the steers to Mordor. A Brujah from my group, played by a chap we called Gibson, and why is hard to explain, but it was the result of him always having some limb in a cast. I don't get that reference.
Neither do I. Poor guy always has a limb in a cast. Sounds like one of my friend's daughters.
Then activate celerity, ripped out of the controls and threw them to him and ran for the emergency door. The dumbstruck Brujah crashed with a pail, but survived with the plane probably, but survived, but held a grudge. This in time resulted in both our havens torched, multiple violations of Elysium, and a private war that threatened to tear the Masquerade in our city to shreds. This all happened with no bad blood between the players, and we played Sabbat priests and pack leaders holding each other back, sometime later, with no baggage from that situation. That's me. What are your spectacular blunders? Despite the previous bluster, this seems to not be jib long, probably for the best. Still take a drink. Until next time, you glorious douches, with all the best regards, Zaris. So, you have a horrible, dumb, stupid thing that you did that you regret?
My friend Ron was running a Vampire of the Dark Ages.
It's always in Vampire. It's always going to be in Vampire.
No, there's some cyberpunk things that I think, but this is, I think, the most egregious because, well, the whole concept of the game was that Ron was going to run 2 different parties, and each party actually worked for a different powerful group within the plot. I think one of them worked for a Zemis, and the other one worked for what are the magic-y guys?
There's
no, and the fleshcrafty guys are the magic guy. Tremere, yeah. And so what ended up having is 3 of us go into the Zemis lair, and he's about to hire us to do this thing, and the other party is going to be hired by the other group, and there was going to be a climactic meeting at the end. That was the whole concept of the game. So we walk in, we're talking to the guy, and playing a gangrel, which are very feral kind of vampires. There was a thing about my...
They're assholes.
They're assholes. One thing about my character that basically he'll go into a frenzy if shit happens, right? And, of course, the guy we were meeting was very haughty and said something to the character that was unpleasant. And Ron goes, that was kind of... you really don't like that, so why
Make
don't you
a-
go ahead and make a willpower test or whatever
check, yep.
the check was, right? To not going to not get angry and
And
go
this
to
is why everybody hates gangrels.
and
it's all
so are you
ones.
sure you don't want to spend a willpower point? You pass that? No, man, I'm
Nah,
cool.
I got
So
five.
I roll
I
it
got 5
3
dice.
ones,
Yep.
just like boom.
So now you've lost 2 humanity, and you took out the party because you frenzied.
So I frenzy out, and basically I took out my 2 trusty battle axes and I stick them into our new boss. And on this, of course, all 10s. I mean, I just explode. The guy is just a pulpy red fine mist, and there's nothing you can do about it. Because, I had stats up the wazoo as gangrels are combat characters. So what ends up happening is that all of his minions going, what? We're end up leaving this castle chased by these flesh-crafted monsters, just trying to get the hell out of Dodge. And at the end of the session, Ron's going, what the hell am I going to do? That
Yeah,
was the
'cause
whole
you-
plot.
that
This
was
is
the
the
whole
guy you
plot,
were
yeah.
supposed to work for. And I'm like, I'm sorry. So what ended up
It's
happening
his fault. He's the one that made you roll.
was that he ended up replacing that guy with his successor, having the other group work for him, and then we ended up going to the other. Ended up having to change the entire sides of the plot. The entire concept of the game had to alter slightly. Everything that he did had to change in essence because of the one shitty roll I had and poor decision I made to not spend a willpower point. So yeah, that almost killed the party, almost ruined the entire campaign for 2 parties. So that one is actually pretty bad.
I don't regret it, but it has gotten me the most flack. And so I was playing this sort of arrogant sorcerer, raised, rich and everything. And this is 4E, so I had just gotten a bunch of new tier powers. So I'm feeling all cocksure. And it was keeping in line with the characters. So everybody's arguing about what they're going to go do, and there's 3 corridors. I'm like, yeah, fuck it, I'm all powerful now. I can cast spells, and it's a sorcerer.
Right.
So I decided to just go on my own and walk down the hallway. Right, and I think I picked the one on the left or whatever, and all of a sudden I'm surrounded by stuff, and it was almost a TPK, right? And I don't regret it because it's exactly what the character would have done. I mean, in hindsight, everybody's like, "That's a totally ransom. Ransom was that was," but people were. I still get hate mail about it, and the people in the party were mad at me for. They're still mad when they talk about it.
A lot of these stories that are popping into my brain are really. That's what the character would have done.
Yeah, but
type of stories.
Yeah.
But how much can you lean on that when you
Exactly.
ruin everybody's fun just because you have to stay in character?
Right.
So, keeping in mind that there's a social aspect to this kind of game, and you sort of have to play well with others.
Right.
You have to make your decisions based on that, and sometimes you might hold back or do things that you don't feel the character might exactly do.
This was totally keeping in line. I mean, there were a couple of bad rolls. First of all, we had people playing some roles for the first time that they weren't familiar with, so they didn't know the power set. And the other thing is, I think
other people.
Stu rolled really well for his. No, because Tyler was playing our defense guy, and he didn't know half his power set. And then Stu rolled really well, I think, for your monsters attacks. as well.
See, your fault.
So there were a couple of things at play there, other than the fact that I was like bored now, gonna go wander.
It was
that is the worst thing ever.
It was
That's
the
the Paul
hard.
Thompson thing.
It was the hardest by power level, or they didn't use CR. I don't remember what 4th edition used.
Threat rating, I think, or something. No, they had
challenge
a
rating,
mechanic
I
for it.
thought.
Challenge rating. Yeah,
They didn't
I
have
thought
challenge.
it was rating.
4th didn't have challenge rating.
Didn't?
I think it had something else.
Whatever.
Did it? Maybe
I think
it
they're
did.
back to hit dice now.
Yes, they are. Maybe it did have challenge rating. Anyway, it was the hardest encounter you guys ever had relative to your party level.
And we'd all just gotten new powers, so I was new. I'm like,
That's
we're all
always
going
so
through the
rough.
books, going, what can this do
Especially
now?
in 4th because
And they were doing the whole thing where like the thief and the fighter are sneaking down a hallway, and the thief's checking for traps and looking around the corners, and they're like being very, very careful. This is the way we're gonna go. And then he's like, yeah, it was awesome.
It was awesome.
It was.
When all was said and done.
It resulted in
character.
an incredibly long, very typically 4th edition D&D fight.
yeah.
with everybody yelling at me in between, you suck, why did you do that? So
And I also used tactics in that one too, because they're like, oh, that's right, there's one healer.
right.
So these guys can, like, I don't remember what they were like brutes. You had like you had 3 tiers of monsters. You had like the shitty ones.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Then you had like the
You had your mook monsters, and you have your middle kind, then you had your boss monsters.
right. This was like the mid-level guys. They were all mid-level guys. So there was like none, and you're not supposed to have like a mix. And I'm like, fuck this. The fights have been too easy.
Nobody died, but it was
It
close.
was a long, frustrating.
Well, what are they
fight.
complaining about?
Right.
Jeez.
Well, because I split the party.
And it was hours and hours and hours in one combat session.
Always look at the ceiling, never split the party. Always check the traps. I mean, come on, man. How long have you been doing this? There's some basic, simple goddamn rules. But you know what? It's. But now that my brain starts churning on it, your brother-in-law's backstabbing of the Shadowrun group.
Yeah, but that was so cool just because
he kind of stumbled into it, though.
Well, no, he did, because we started playing Shadowrun 4 after the new book came out, and it was like, you need to run run us through some games, and I wasn't particularly motivated to do so, but they badgered me into it, because my friends do that. And, all right, we're all using characters right out of the book, and we did. And so everybody who joined, ended up being...
There was no character generation. Everybody just picked a template out of the book.
Yeah, that was the 13-player game eventually. And my brother-in-law picked the guy who had a whole bunch of mob contacts. He goes, well, I'm trying to get into
So he
this
sold
mob
us all out to the mob contacts. So it was basically just random effect of him, of all the background things that his character that he randomly picked out of the book ended up being. But what really strikes me a lot of these stories is that I look back at these stories and I remember being so pissed off or being so afraid that they're going to kick me out of the group that now when I look back at it like 10 years later, I laugh my balls off because it's literally some of the funnest stories.
Yeah,
that
but
I
see,
can
he
tell about
was
RPG.
afraid of that specifically because, this story that the guy emailed in, where hey, this thing happened and it sucked, but there was no bad blood, and we that's fine. His group, his D&D group, was totally not like that. All that baggage, just the stupidest shit carried over, and they don't talk to each other anymore.
Yeah.
When he came into our game.
He came in from a really bad group.
Dude,
toxic.
Yeah, exactly. It's the group that made me realize how good I had it, because we played all kinds of stuff, and look, stupid shit happens, bad decisions are made,
Bad dice rolls.
yeah. Usually, it's more bad decisions than anything else. You put yourself in a spot where it's like, well, that was bad, but we had everybody that we had, including Mitch. Oh, thank God for Mitch, could roll with that stuff.
Yeah, well, we trained him to do that. I mean, how many times have you hit me with a grenade? In several role-playing games. You have most games. No, and Paul,
they're usually stun grenades to put your bitch in.
Paul had a theory that if his wizard didn't shoot a crossbow at my paladin and hit it, he would not be able to do anything in a combat. So first round, he would always just sort of hit me.
Stu's Glitter Boy has been missing a lot with his boom gun.
Well,
It's only 46 times 10. Come on.
Exactly.
I don't play in Savage Worlds Rifts. It's 12. It's 4d12 plus 4.
Dear God.
And they added
Like,
mega
still like a
damage
4-1.
rules
Yeah,
to
mega damage,
Savage
yeah.
Worlds specifically
crap.
for Rifts. But I was using my railgun for surgical strikes, where it's like they use the small burst template for the area of effect when where it hits, and it's like, okay, I'm going to place it right like that, and I'll miss this guy, and I'll miss this guy, and this guy. Okay, good. 2 1s.
Yep.
Yeah, but that happens.
It does.
There's no way around it. And honestly, like I said, if Jim can get over me hitting him with a stun grenade in every single game I have a grenade launcher in,
Yeah, pretty much.
that's just the way it's going to have to be.
And the takeaway, because we've talked about this before, is nobody really remembers the fights they win that were easy and such. What you remember is the stuff that went awry, or the mistakes that were made, and those are the stories you talk about. These are the ones
That depends how you win, though.
I disagree. I am no mere hedge mage.
Yeah, right.
That was the easiest cakewalk combat. I had a D&D 5th edition game. The party, I think, was 3rd level, and this is the first time they're going to meet a mage who has fireball. And he's there, and they're trying to pass this area, and he won't let them through. And he's got a bunch of henchmen. He's got like 6 or 8 henchmen with him. And they have an exchange with him, and he says, "I am no mere hedge mage," because he had this weird-ass accent. And then we rolled initiative, and then the party said, "Okay, we're going to attack." And we rolled initiative, and I rolled like a 3 on the guy's initiative, so he went last.
Oh, no.
He was dead before he got to.
Now, they're all playing orcs on rhinos, mind you.
Well, some of them were orcs on rhinos, but a lot of people on rhinos. I should never have given them rhinos. If I hadn't given them the rhinos, that was my biggest mistake.
Out of context, that is literally one of the greatest things I ever said. I should have never given them rhinos.
Well, but that's like Mitch's game, where it was like, the villain for all these
the
upcoming
Scratch
arcs.
one, Prince of Darkness?
Yeah, right. You use Tappy's unconscious body to block the poison darts and kill him in one shot.
Yeah.
Because speaking of a dumb thing, that was more of a character decision that I had no clue what I was in for. I was a bodyguard for scorpions in a Five Rings game, not realizing they were scorpions, and so I was constantly thrown into stuff where it was
Would
like
the masks give you away or anything?
Well, no, because they weren't like actively hiding, but there was all this intrigue around them, and I was just a stupid mantis wandering around. And
Bumpkin Mantis was just hilarious. He was just like from like Omaha Mantis.
Okay, I remember one specific time we went to what's the play? I think it was a geisha house.
Okay.
But they're doing some sort of a play, and the whole point is part of this traditional play is the leading lady takes somebody from the audience backstage, and Mitch, the guy I work for, goes, "Make sure it's you." Okay. And so I do this, not thinking about it. So we're backstage, and it's like, things are getting pretty good. And I realize everybody snuck into the room around me. Oh, shit, she's probably an assassin. And yeah, she's pulling out poison needles and shit. And so I have nothing. I didn't think about it.
He's at a show.
Yeah, all my gear is over there. And it's like, what do? I entangle her, and I made I was pretty good in hand-to-hand combat, and I headbutted her into unconsciousness. And then all I'm doing is finding all the stuff she's used to kill me with. But I never learned. The next time it was like, oh, this is really dangerous. We should have told me beforehand. Well, then you would have done it. Well, yeah.
Well, yeah. They just kept tricking him into doing this stuff all the time, and he would just.
But that wasn't a character concept. That just was. I was just not. I'm like, none of this pertains to me.
Maybe I gave you too much credit there, derp.
Yeah.
Sort of Gomer Pyle. He always ends up on top anyway.
Exactly, and he always did for some reason. It was amazing, but
that was dice. That was 100% dice.
Sergito said in the chat room, says, you said mantis, so of course the character's stupid.
Yep, absolutely.
100%.
Absolutely. They're boneheads.
I'm gonna
yes, but that wasn't intentional on my part. That just was.
I've started reading through the L5R 4th edition book again because I'm gonna run another campaign because we did the Saga of the Inukai thing,
Right.
which I sort of made up a minor family in the Crane clan and gave them a little area. It's going to be in sort of the same continuum, but it'll be a different part of it. But I've been watching. What I did for the first time I ran it is I watched as many samurai movies as I could possibly watch to get the whole mindset of that culture down. Last night I finished watching Ron.
Oh, great movie.
Oh my God, it's
King
amazing.
Lear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But-
I have the Criterion edition of that.
Oh, do you really? It was fantastic. And Hulu used to have a ton.
Yeah,
of that
that's
stuff.
so
And they
mercurial
don't
what they
now.
have and don't have.
Like they used to have every Zatoichi film there was. None, not one. They don't have any samurai films that aren't animated right now,
Yeah.
which is terrible.
Yeah, but that's the world of shifting rights.
Right.
Yeah.
But I can't find where they all went because there's a lot of what is it? Was it 47 Assassins or
47 Ronin?
47 Ronin, yeah.
47 Ronin? The original,
The good one.
the,
Yeah.
the one that that's very long.
Well, yeah, but the other one had Keanu Reeves in it. It was terrible. So by default,
The other one
it is the good one.
is a movie based on a movie with the same title as.
It's-
It had nothing to do
Nothing
with
to
it.
do
Most
with it.
Kurosawa films, should fit the bill, right?
Yeah, but no one's streaming them. I mean, I can buy them, but no one's streaming any Kurosawa. I was
Really-
especially like Toshiro Mifune. I'm a big fan
Yeah,
of
me too.
Toshiro
He's
Mifune.
awesome.
What's the loss of buying him? Honestly,
Well, that's true.
You know,
that's true.
It's one of those things where
Ron was $6 to buy to stream on Amazon. I'm like, that's easy
To keep or to rent?
to keep.
Yeah, that's
It was like $2.99 to rent it and like $6.99 to buy it.
I wonder, does Shogun still hold up? Is it really dated now?
the miniseries
Yeah.
with what's his face,
Richard Chamberlain and Toshiro Mifune.
Yeah,
yeah, that's right. Yeah,
He played
I don't know. I haven't.
Diamond.
And Sulla.
I haven't watched that probably since it was on TV.
Yeah.
I haven't watched it recently
late
either, but I remember
70s.
enjoying the crap.
It's a
out of
real
it.
good primer, as I recall, for it's a gaijin's guide to Japan, right? It talks about honor. It talks about what to do, and you're learning as he's learning.
Right. Yeah. I started reading the book, which is a little long-winded.
Yeah.
And I got about a quarter of the way through it. Again, before I was prepping that first game.
Yeah.
That miniseries was really well done. I want to see it again to see if it stands up. That's a good question.
I wonder, it might stream out there. I'll look that up. I'll look that up while someone is reading GM Confession from Amar in Vancouver.
Figure out.
Okay. Pardon the nasaliness. It's my turn to be sick today. Dear Scooby-Doo and the douche estuary machine.
Douchery.
We have
Douchery? There we go.
Yeah, the mystery machine.
Amar from Vancouver here with a DM confession / horror story.
Oh.
Oh, these are great. Back in the early days of 4th edition, I ran a game that was a filler campaign. Oh, those are wonderful. By filler, I mean it was a game that was going to be played on game nights when the regular GM couldn't show up, or we had such low attendance that we decided to cancel our regular game. 4th edition was pretty good for this because, it's basically a board game. And
True.
how. For some reason, I got it in my head that I wanted to give out a bunch of house-ruled powers to my players. I don't recall why. I was handing out experience like condoms backstage at a Guns N' Roses concert, which would never get used, by the way. So extra powers weren't needed at all. Seriously, at the beginning, characters were going 2 or 3 levels a session. Sounds like one of my games.
Yeah.
So the mechanism I chose to infect my players with new abilities was to have them wade through a chest-deep lake of green goo, make a few saves on the way through, and acquire some random powers / curses based on the result of the roll on a table. Just writing that makes me shake my head. My players had a different idea on encountering a steaming lake of green goo in a subterranean passage. They opted to try and climb over it. Being seasoned D&D players, every one of them had ropes, iron spikes, climbing kits, etc. The next 3 hours of role-playing involved the players creating triple redundant rope safety systems and me coming up with every way I could think of to try and knock them off the ceiling and in the goo. The lake was steaming, so it was slick with slime. They were under a volcano, so tremors and shaking were common. A fissure directly in their path was blasting toxic hot gas, blocking their way, yada, yada, yada. 3 real-time hours later, 2 of the players waded up on the far shore, and the other 2 climbed down from the ceiling. Of course, as I was wearing my king-size conductor's hat, I said, since you all have spent the last several hours laboring through the slime steam, you each contracted an infection. Roll on the random table. The look of pure hatred directed at me by my players, who had actually managed to get through my gauntlet of cock blockery, was my first clue that I may be doing something wrong. I was such an asshole that night.
Gauntlet of cock blockery is such
That
a
is
great
beautiful.
turn of phrase.
It's my System of a Down cover. There were so many things wrong with this approach, most of which has been covered in your Gem of a podcast already. What really stands out to me, though, is how, in the moment, I was utterly oblivious to what the shitty DM I was being. Within 20 minutes of finishing that encounter, I was already aware of how stupid it was to let it go for that long, but somehow, while I was doing it, I couldn't see the players were completely disengaged. I was blinded by the light coming off my heavenly railroad tracks. I guess the moral of the story is, it doesn't matter how scenic the view is if your players are asleep on the train. Thanks for your tireless efforts on behalf of the role-playing community. Cheers. Amar from Vancouver, BC. Not that other less Vancouver, you heard me, Washington. Smack monkey on the forums. P.S. Douchebags drink.
Nice.
I'm still getting over the System of a Down cover band joke.
It's funny. I guess my take on that is that, when you have something that you want to see done, if that's the linchpin of what you're trying to do, people can get combative.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, hey, you're ruining my story. Hey, you're ruining my gaming experience.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with saying this happens.
Yeah. I mean, we had a
absolutely
friend
wrong.
create a rule in games called the drop rule. Because invariably you'd be
Made it for
surrounded...
me.
Yeah, him specifically. You'd be surrounded by bad guys, and despite the well-laid plans and the cleverness of everything, the party would find a way out of it, mainly by either being generally badasses, going first, any other number of reasons. But there's a certain point where it's like, they have the drop on you. You don't. Sorry.
And it was just a lesson of sometimes for the sake of the story, certain things just happen, and the players just have to be okay with it. And trying to create some kind of really convoluted situation or mechanism where you're trying to force people to roll their way into whatever you're doing, that can turn sour on you so fast, so hard.
Yeah, the easy solution to that, save 3 hours, is you walk into this room, there's the goop, you go around it. Oh, well, the toxic gas gives you this, start rolling.
Yeah.
There you go. Saved you 3 hours.
Done.
Right.
Yeah.
And then hopefully at that point, since you saved 3 hours and didn't turn it into an us versus them thing, they're cool with, oh, now I can do this stuff. Great.
There is a thing that happens, and I think it has to come through experience, which is a GM sometimes isn't always engaged with watching their players. Stu's talked about this before too, which is sometimes you don't know that they're not having a good time. You're caught up in all the rules and machinations and looking stuff up, and you're not scanning the table, and you're not reading the vibe. And I think that comes through experience. After a while, you just begin to relax, and then you can feel the vibe off the table. That's a problem that I think you can resolve through experience. It sounds like you've picked it up at the end of your encounter. You're like, uh-oh. I mean, they didn't come to you later with torches and pitchforks and try to, you're never GMing again, get the hell out of the apartment. You realized 20 minutes later, like, I think I really botched this. Oops.
Well, you guys as performers should have a particularly good insight at that, because I'm certain as you're performing, you're reading the crowd and trying to figure out what you
Absolutely.
need to do next.
I mean, that's what I consider that to be one of my primary jobs in the band. While everyone else is performing, I'm in the back playing bouzouki, and I'm standing up on a big box, and I can see the whole audience, and I'm looking, okay, during the song, is there anyone who's like completely disengaged or walking away? If people leave, how many people leave? Did they come from different areas? Is it one group who was looking at their watch and realized they missed something? So I'm always doing that. And then, if we have too many people leave during a song, okay, we're not going to try that song on the next set. We're going to do something else. We do that all the time.
Yeah, and I think it's very important from any artistic endeavor to try to basically read what your audience is picking up from what you're doing. And don't mislabel it. As a GM, you are a performer.
Absolutely.
In just about every aspect of it. You're making up voices, you're making up characters, you're making up stories, you're setting scenes, you're painting pictures with words. Sometimes you're painting pictures that you hand out. So it's very important for you to garner feedback from your group. I think that's
that's
very
when
important.
a game works well, is when you get that feedback loop going. The players are jazzed, and then they start feeding you ideas, or you just get off on the fact that they're getting off on your game, and then they get off on the fact that you bounce back and forth. And that's when things
it
really
creates
work.
an energy loop.
Absolutely,
Yeah, absolutely.
And just like when we're on stage and the audience is digging and we play better, it's a special thing. But I think new GMs don't always do that. They get caught up in the minutia. They're not always paying attention. Because there's a lot of balls in the air when you're GMing, especially new, and maybe you're not familiar with the rule set or whatever, and you're not paying true attention. I think through time and experience, you begin to sit back and you can watch your players, and you're aware of it. I think also with situations like this, he had the best of intentions. He just got caught up in all the minutiae. He got caught up in having this one thing happen and lost perspective.
But at the same time, though, let's not put this all on the GM. As a player, if all of you are like, what's the point? Say something.
Yeah.
I mean, don't go to that a lot, because he may be setting up, he may be building to something, but at some point, if you're completely disengaged from the game, the further you get, the less chance, no matter what cool thing he's plotting, is going to drag you back in. You need to have that communication as a player, especially new players.
When you peel away the layers, though, and you get to the core of it, it's a trust issue.
Yeah.
So, as a GM, you need to trust your players, but conversely also, as a player, you need to really trust your GM in that, he's not your adversary. He's there to do something in there. And a lot of times, as a GM, I'm going, look, I'm building to something, and I know this is kind of weird, but just be patient with me. Just saying something like that goes a long way to save your butt in a situation where they're just trying to solve a puzzle. If you're not letting them know what kind of puzzle they're solving, they're going to go any direction that they possibly can to solve that puzzle. So sometimes you just have to remove the GM screen and just to have a frank conversation and go, hey, I know this is kind of weird, guys, but bear with me. I have a plan. Or just go, hey, I notice you guys are really frustrated. This is where I'm going. If I find that certain GMs I play with, I will just go along with whatever the heck they do, because I just trust them implicitly, and I know that things are going to work out. They're not going to try to screw me over.
Hey, there's a plot hook. Let's pick that up.
Exactly. Yeah. So, in one of those situations where if you just sometimes just trust your GM, man, or notice when he's constantly trying to shove you into a direction, sometimes it's just in your best interest to go that direction instead of just resisting it.
Yeah. Well, especially if your long-term experience with any particular GM is story is the key part. I mean, that's where I've been lucky, is that back to my brother-in-law and his shitty D&D group is they basically got around, I think, to antagonize each other, whereas I've had this long experience where we're telling a story, and it's a collaborative thing, and yeah, people die occasionally, or things don't go your way, but everybody has their moment to shine, everybody has their part of the story, and that's what it's about. So you're willing, at least in my case, willing to go along with that, willing to give them more slack or more credit. It's like, okay, we'll
ride the roller coaster. You're not steering it. Just ride the roller coaster sometimes. And sure, it's fun to have agency and fun to contribute to the story, but and every once in a while you just sort of let go. And
I was going to say, I actually sometimes some of the newer games, it's exhausting to keep driving the thing forward. Sometimes I just like a good railroad, especially if it's taking me to a setup of some sort. It's like maybe it's the beginning of the thing, or you're traveling to, and so he's narrating a story or getting you to a part where you can then pick up again. I don't mind that, and many times, like you just said, sometimes it's okay to just go along for the ride, because that he's put some thought into this.
Right.
But conversely, I don't want every one of my actions to have been dictated to me or thought out.
Right.
There should be a balance.
You need to feel that you're sort of directing your character and have, like I said, agency in what the character is doing, but it's sometimes just far more simple from a GM point of view to go, this just happened, and just say that it just happened. And it's very important for the player character to just be okay with that, as long as that tool is not overused.
And we discuss that all the time too, especially with the investigative games. Like, give them the clue. If you're going to have them roll for it or have them check for stuff, you're wasting everybody's time. Just tell them stuff so that they can solve the puzzle.
Yeah. Me and Jim Pinto one of these days are going to get in a fist fight fighting people about freaking perception checks. I hate perception checks.
I'm in that camp these days too.
I think a lot of times perception checks are a stalling tactic.
I agree with you totally.
By the GM to she's like, okay, I'm not sure what.
Roll me a perception.
Well, sometimes also it's just you're unfamiliar, and so you want to be fair. Everybody roll a perception check because I don't know who.
If I ask for a perception check as a GM, I feel like I'm admitting I don't know what's going on.
Okay, fair enough.
That's basically what I'm saying. Every time I ask for a perception check, whenever I stumble into it, is because I'm not really sure what's going on, and I want to use that character's point of view as sort of like a gateway to try to make something of it.
I've sort of blended the two, which is I'll have people roll a perception check, knowing that I'm going to give them the clue, but whoever wins the highest is the one I give the clue to, or it's the one I tell them that they notice something. Especially, and I sometimes want to see a failure. It's like, I know you guys are going to get this, but I just want to see how well you succeed. Oh, a fail. Now all of a sudden the story might get more interesting.
Yeah, but what it does to a narrative in general, when you tell somebody to look for something and they go, oh, you found nothing.
Right.
It completely destroys every and any reality that you've set up.
Right.
So if you're going to do perception checks, I said, okay, I roll your perception checks.
Yeah.
That's the only skill roll or whatever attribute roll that I roll for you, but I roll for it because there are obvious advantages for the GM to roll.
And it makes so much more sense if somebody goes, hey, I noticed, or you can just send it to them, whether they want to alert the party or not.
Mm-hmm. One of the things I really hate is games like the games that have a perception skill, but it isn't part of any basic skill makeup of any generic characters, so a lot of times you either forget or don't know to put that perception skill in, and you have an entire group of characters that have zero perception skill.
Exactly. They're all Mantis.
And
on that note,
all right. I've just found a press release. Turnstile attendance at Gen Con was 207,979.
Holy smokes.
But that's how many people walk past.
Yeah.
That's a daily thing. And I never even went through a turnstile, so because there's the convention center, there's like probably 40 entrance doors, and most of them don't have turnstiles.
Well, that number's out there somewhere. If they legitimately sold out, somebody came up with a number in their head. And
they said
this is the max
it's over 60. And they said for the third consecutive year, Gen Con targeted an approximate attendance of 60,000 unique attendees. The other thing we found out when we got there was that They Might Be Giants were playing in the stadium, or in one of they had some other building that they'd rented out, and they did a concert there, but we didn't even know about that.
My wife bought me.
Sucks because I think Bill's a big fan.
He is. He's a huge fan.
My wife bought me a They Might Be Giants concert DVD. 2 weeks later, I proposed.
Oh, see, so they might be giants. As
Right.
very powerful music.
Yeah, absolutely.
The thing is, I mentioned once that I like that band, and she bought that for me. So it's that kind of like, just like I notice things about, I see you kind of thing that really.
No perception roll required.
No perception
She
roll
just.
I think it's more an investigation, but
Yeah.
whatever.
And she critted.
I think as a general rule, you can say that most women have a perception bonus. Either that or we have a penalty,
An obtuse bonus.
Yeah.
generally speaking. All right. Thank you for joining us for season 20, episode 3 of Happy Checks RPG podcast. My name is Stu.
I'm Jim.
Mike,
Stork.
And thank you guys for coming. I appreciate
Thanks
it.
for having us. Really
yeah.
appreciate it.
And we'll obviously see you next weekend.
Yes, you will.
Next weekend.
see you.
That's right. And
Yeah.
we'll see you there too. And by the way, we'll be doing a live show at 8 p.m. on Saturday. And we're going to try to stream it with video again.
Make my life hard.
Wish us luck. Thank you very much. We'll leave with a song.
Bye. There is a.
Come one and all, both great and small, with voices loud and clear, and let us sing, bless Bessie the Queen, who paid the tax upon beer. For I like to drop a good beer, I do, I like to drop a good beer, and damn his eyes whoever tries to rob a poor man of his beer.
Let minister shape the duty on Cape and cause port wine to be dear, so that he may keep the bread and meat cheap and give us a drop of good beer.
For I like to drop a good beer, I do, I like to drop a good beer, and damn his eyes whoever tries to rob a poor man of his beer. In the drinking of rum, the maggots will come, and soon both pates will appear. I never goes out, but I carry about me weep and noggin of beer. For I like to drop a good beer, I do, I like to drop a good beer, and damn his eyes whoever tries to rob a poor man of his beer.
My good wife and I, we always feel dry at market on Saturday night. With a noggin of beer, I never need fear if my wife always says it is right.
For I like to drop a good beer, I do, I like to drop a good beer, and damn his eyes whoever tries to rob a poor man of his beer. The farmer's board will plenty afford, let it come from far and near, and in harvest home the nugget will foam if he gives us all plenty of beer. For I like to drop a good beer, I do, I like to drop a good beer, and damn his eyes whoever tries to rob a poor man of his beer. So long may Queen Elizabeth reign, and to her subject be dear, and the wall of her clothes wherever she goes, she gives us a skinful of beer. For I like to drop a good beer, I do, I like to drop a good beer, and damn his eyes whoever tries to rob a poor man of his beer. For I like to drop a good beer, I do, I like to drop a good beer, and damn his eyes whoever tries to rob a poor man of his beer.
The preceding program has been a presentation of the Angry Folk Media Empire.